Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner. I hope you had a lovely day. The weather was good up to a point, but if you were up here in Highland Park, thunderstorms and severe rain came down. So I hope that you all took cover. We certainly know that the grass and the flowers need the rain, and we hope that your driving is careful and that you don't rush to where you have to go. Slippery streets do cause tragedy, so be very careful. Also, because the weather is hot, please hydrate yourself. A lot of water for you, your family, your children, even your animals. Don't leave your animals out. Bring them in to keep them cool. And just remember, everything balances on the way you feel because of the weather. Sometimes you might not even realize the fact that you are not hydrated enough. You become dizzy, disorientated, tired, whatever. Just hydrate yourself. And best be inside. If you know any senior citizens, please look out for them and keep them in a cool area. A fine thing to do is go to the shopping mall and go in there and even walk around. It's good exercise. The air is cool, and when the temperature breaks, you can go home. They have food courts. They have everything that you might need, and or go to the library, educational as well. There you don't have to spend money, but at Northbrook Court or anywhere else you go, you might have to do that. Also, today is Flag Day. June 14th, 2017, Flag Day. We recognize this day for our American flag, and I was with the group of American Legionnaires. Pardon me. I'm with the Women's Auxiliary, and Commander Larry Sacerosi from the Highland Park District was leading the ceremony this morning downtown Highland Park, and then we went for refreshments afterwards. It's very important that we remember who we are. We are Americans, and that our flag is our symbol of freedom, liberty, and justice. Going back slightly, I remember being in school when you had to write an essay about what the flag means to me. And if you wrote a terrific essay, you won a trip to Washington, D.C. I wasn't that lucky, but I do recall that that was very important to write. That was a fourth grade experience that at the age of 9, you're supposed to know what the American flag means. So to all of you out there who are military, our hats go off to you, and a salute to you. Thank you for your service. And this Flag Day, everyone who is an American, please, I hope that you have placed your flag for everyone to see. We always keep our flag here on the dais. Here we are. This is our flag. And my saying here and motto is God bless America, because there is no other place on earth like America. We are so happy and so proud that we can allow the freedoms that we give to our people here in America, the ability to have freedom of speech and to be able to live their life as well as they would like. But it wasn't easy, and that's why we have gone through World War I and World War II, the Korean War, and Desert Storm, and so we would just like to thank all those who were in the service. Thank you for your service to our country. Okay, and I just want to let you know that, excuse me, that it's most important to know that the monument that is in downtown Highland Park speaks volumes of those who lived here in Highland Park and gave the ultimate price. And it goes back all the way to the Civil War. Could you believe? I believe it was Mr. Maloney from the Civil War, a Highland Park resident. And so we're very proud of that family and for all that he gave, the ultimate sacrifice. This evening we have, this is part 3, we have Ken Dukowski. This is a follow-up on all of the updates for the conversations that we've had. And he's going to be talking and discussing tonight about the corruption in the medical field. And I don't know what we can do about it, but it's knowledge and it's information that maybe will be able to help you with insurance or the physicians that you choose to help keep yourself well and healthy. So without any further ado, we're here again. Ken Dukowski, we're here.
Thank you. The government came up with a press release about some $750 million that had been paid out wrongfully or inappropriately to various medical professionals. And when you couple this with the $1 billion that Philippus Formus took, you wind up with a massive picture of what's happening with healthcare in this country and why Obamacare, Trump care, whatever you want to call it, is DOA. You cannot have a 700% surcharge on these costs. And one of the problems is the fact there are no easy solutions. For instance, all doctors are not created equal. All doctors do not bear the competence that is necessary to practice medicine. The doctors at the University of Chicago, the doctors at Cleveland Clinic have international reputations. There are several surgeons at Cleveland Clinic who do surgery that is almost unbelievable. And in many cases, it would normally be impossible for even some of the most skilled surgeons, other surgeons to do it. These surgeons have a professional life expectancy of it's very short, and they turn them out. And the government looks at this, and the payers look at all this, and they pay the surgeon who performs this massive surgery, this spectacular surgery, at the same rate that they pay a rummy to do it. Cleveland Clinic surgeon who attempts to perform a particular type of surgery gets paid under the same formula that one at Larkin Hospital in Miami gets paid. And Larkin, I mentioned Larkin Hospital because it's involved in the Philippus Formus case, and it's been involved in other enterprises that have been less than appropriate. And many doctors today have to have a nurse set up specifically to do the coding so they can get paid. And the government also encourages doctors to take the most complicated method of surgery rather than the one that's more efficient. My father used to use placebos all the time. Before there was Viagra, he had a client who had a problem. He couldn't perform on his wedding, and he came in and was very upset about it. And my father called Kirschenbaum Pharmacy on Devon Avenue and said to Eli Kirschenbaum, get me a big brown pill and fill it with casein. And then he sent me out to pick it up. It came in a bottle labeled with God knows what and detailed instructions. He handed this man. And 2 weeks later, the guy came back and said to my father, whatever that medicine was, it was terrific. It worked. Well, medicine is an art. It's not a science.
We need to let the viewers know your father was a physician.
Yes.
Okay. So
Okay.
what they,
And so was my brother.
okay.
And my brother had, well, there's an incident involving my daughter's dog. My daughter's dog developed a massive tumor on the neck. And she took the dog to the vet, and the vet looked at it and told her they'd need very substantial surgery. It would cost $3,500, $4,500 to do it. And she called my brother and asked about it, and he says, why don't you use a little lemon juice? Smear some lemon juice on that tumor. Tumor went down, disappeared. There was no surgery required. And I understand that happens to people too, and the accepted technique is lemon juice. For years, my brother prescribed chicken soup to people who had the flu, and in most instances, it worked.
Well, it can't hurt.
It can't hurt, but medicine's an art, and the doctor's a salesman. And what we have done to the doctor is we have held him to a standard that's impossible. And we've taken away the salesmanship. If a doctor makes a decision that X treatment is necessary, he could be sued for malpractice if it doesn't work, and most of the time is, and he's got to prove it. He's got to show he did 1,000 tests to find out it. Well, this is ridiculous, but it does happen and leads to placing doctors, many of them, and hospitals in this catch-22. And this is a corruption that's built into the system. I don't know if we can get rid of this. There are talks about reducing malpractice insurance, to make it less reducing it.
Well, they say a lot of physicians, they're going to other states where malpractice insurance isn't as expensive.
Yeah, well,
or they're not even, they're dropping that and going into teaching.
Well, they have to.
Instead
They
of
have to.
practicing.
It's become a real problem because of the fact when I go to the doctor, I expect that if I've got a sore toe, he's going to cure my sore toe.
Well,
It may not be curable. There's a possibility it may not. I may have to learn to live with it. People get diabetes. It gets worse. It doesn't get better, no matter what the treatment is. And it gets progressively worse. And there are a whole series of things that government health care and health care doesn't take into account. And somehow we have to bring this into play. And it becomes very, very important.
but does the public know about this? I don't think the public knows.
No, they
I
don't.
think this is a step ahead only because professionals and the pharmaceuticals and the schools and the government are aware of what's going on, the transactions, but the public doesn't know. They have no idea.
Well, that is another form of corruption. The public, the American Medical Association should be out there educating the public that medicine is not a science. It is an art. And the doctor has to be given leeway. Now, the legal standard is the ordinary, reasonable doctor in the community, which is a pretty low standard. We don't take that. When these malpractice suits go to go to court, that standard is somehow lost. It's mentioned, they talk about it, the juries are instructed. But if you wind up with a case, if a doctor winds up with a case where it's particularly compelling, that standard goes out of all proportion. My brother once had a case where a very, very beautiful young woman, extraordinarily beautiful, about 18 years old, had a tumor that was enveloping the facial nerve.
Oh, how terrible.
Yes, it is terrible. And she went to doctor after doctor, and every doctor said, I wouldn't touch this with a 20-foot pole. Because if that scalpel touched the facial nerve, he'd turn her into Mumbles.
Wow.
And you know who Mumbles is?
Yeah.
And Dick Tracy?
Dick Tracy, sure.
Yeah, and whole face would look like spaghetti.
Distorted, sure.
Yeah. So the situation was no one would do it. And when he talked to me about it, I said, even if she signs an exculpation, if everybody in sight signs an exculpation, I wouldn't touch it. Because it's such delicate surgery, you're going to have a problem. Well, he did it anyway. And it was a 7 or 8 hour surgery. It was a real dissection. And my brother's was tremendously skilled. And he's chopping away and chopping away and chopping away. And he gets down to almost the last chop. And he touches the facial nerve, and the whole face goes limp. Drops.
Wow.
Fortunately, it was only temporary. And it came back, and it was a success.
Terrific.
But
How often can you be that lucky, though?
he was very, very lucky.
And he was very skilled to be able to have done that. See?
He was very skilled. Some of his stories are kind of interesting. There was a problem with some kind of dizziness that people develop. And this guy went to doctor after doctor in South Florida looking for someone who could find a solution.
You're not talking about vertigo, are you? No.
And it's not quite vertigo, it's something else.
Okay.
It's something else. And it hits you, and you can be stuck with it for 6-7 months.
Wow.
And then it'll go away. But during that period, you're pretty much incapacitated. Well, this patient finally was brought to him, and they decided they'd take a look and see what the inner ear looked like. So they brought him into the hospital, and they laid him on one of the gurneys and went through all the rigmarole of getting ready for surgery. And as he's getting prepared, he slips on some water on the floor and goes elbow into the patient's head.
Oh!
He really gave him a whack right across the head. So they decided that they'd wait for the patient to come out of the ether, and they'd apologize. And they decided not to do anything because the best thing was apologize and walk away.
Wow.
And whatever the patient decided to do for the bang in the head, they'd have to face it. Patient comes out of the ether and he says, "Oh my God, it's wonderful. I don't have any dizziness."
But they didn't do anything.
That's right, except my brother banged him in the head. Gave him a real whack at the head. I understand the treatment now is to use a rubber hammer.
Oh my goodness sakes. Oh my goodness sakes.
But this is part of medicine. How do you bill a patient for hitting him in the head?
I don't know.
What code do you use?
Yeah, what medical code?
Is it fraud to bill Medicare for this?
Well, it was a physician who performed a service, and the patient can now hear. So, can you call that fraud? Can you call that?
It's part of the situation that we have to deal with. We know we have the guardianship where they where they take advantage of the individual
Sure.
and destroy their humanity. They take their humanity away and they build the hell out of Medicare. We know we have facilities that overcharge. We know about the pharmaceuticals. We know
yeah.
that Omnicare was sold for $12.4 billion, and then CVS I think made some $24 billion on it. We know they concentrated
These are
on
big
nursing.
numbers, enough to fill this room with money, incredible amounts of money.
This is what we're facing. We are facing a crisis which can destroy America.
That's why I say is, Mr. and Mrs. America have no idea of the depth of what's really going on in the medical society, pardon me, or the insurances that are supposedly covering this, or actually not covering it.
We're calling a lot fraud,
Fraud.
which is not fraud, and we're calling other things
Yeah.
that are fraud medical treatment. An aspirin tablet. When a hospital buys an aspirin tablet, buys aspirin, it doesn't buy it in those little vials that we get.
Oh, they buy in gross amounts.
Certainly.
Huge.
And it doesn't cost them
What they charge.
but they charge.
The patient,
And
yeah.
$30 for an aspirin or
Oh.
$100 for an aspirin or all these medical costs are pure unadulterated fraud.
Oh, that you could see.
Now you do get areas like development of drugs. It costs money to develop drugs. There's no
They
question
do
about
research, of course.
it. And there are problems. When my brother was dying, he was faced with a situation where there was a drug that could deal, that they felt might deal with his particular problem. And the test was started with 1,000 people. 997 found some success, didn't work for him, and he died. The probability is the fact that 3 people died will make it much harder for this drug to be available for the 997 people that did pass it. Now, 997 may not be a significant number,
Well,
but the thing is,
to those people it is. They're alive.
to the one person who it helps, it's true. When my mother was sick, she had a breast cancer, which women, I can't remember if it's estrogen positive or estrogen negative, that women who have this particular type of breast cancer live 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, tops. And my brother found a physician who had a drug that he was working with that attacked the most active cells in the body, and he thought it would work on her. And clandestinely, she was given that. And after 3 years, he called us and he says, "I can find no evidence of cancer in your mother."
Wow.
And she lived another 2 years. I think it contributed to my brother's death, but it was
Well,
incredible.
the research that is done on these particular cancers, and now that they say they do have a cure for some particular cancers, which would clear up without any problem. So, what doctor do you believe could be the one that would be most efficient and rewarding to go to survive. What doctor do you know? I mean, how do you gauge them? How do you find them? And when your life is at stake, you want the best.
I don't know. How do you find any professional? How do you find the accountant who can handle your particular situation? How do you find the attorney who can handle your situation? This is part of what we're missing in healthcare and in society. There are people out there, but they have to be found, and you have to experiment in finding them. And if you find the wrong person who doesn't understand your situation, it's not necessarily malpractice.
Well, I would venture to say that, to check around, the only way that I would basically, you don't look through the yellow pages. You go to the top schools, of education.
That doesn't guarantee anything.
Johns Hopkins University
It
or
doesn't
Mayo
guarantee,
Clinic.
It doesn't guarantee
But
you
these
anything.
people are very well versed in what they're doing, and then you check them out if you have to go visit them personally and see if they are the ones that are appropriate for what you do. And you have to be knowledgeable yourself. You need to do some research and some informational checking to see what is their ratio of success to failure. You don't go to court with a losing attorney. That's for sure. If this guy loses, but you say, gee, he's a nice guy, you're never going to win your case. You go with somebody who's an SOB and who knows how to fight in court, and that's what you do. I mean, it's as clear and as simple as that.
I'm glad I'm retired.
Well, okay.
There are people who did think I wasn't very nice, but
Well,
but when I think about how you find somebody, you usually find them by word of mouth. But as I think of Dr. Tejada, who treated my mother, he didn't graduate from a major university. He got himself a job at the University of Miami teaching medicine. I'm not quite sure how, but he wasn't very well thought of by his fellows.
is he a
But he
physician?
was, he did.
He graduated?
Yeah, he saved
Well,
my
he
mother's life.
graduated anybody. Well, see,
He saved my mother's life and gave her 5 years
that she wouldn't have had.
because he understood something about the type of cancer that she had that other doctors didn't understand.
Well,
And
you see, there's different grades of
but it's not taken.
knowledge.
It's not taken into account.
And again, it's not so much what they learn, it's who is it that is learning this, the person themselves. Because I would think that someone that is knowledgeable about book writings, that's one thing. But someone who is experienced and knowledgeable about hands-on, that's a whole other story. Someone who reads a book, okay, they read a book. Have they ever tried it? No. The guy who has hands-on and has performed whatever operations that they've performed and used whatever medical, attributes that they would need, he's the guy you want to go to.
Well,
he has a very high rate of success.
Well, it can be right and can be wrong, but the problem is looking at this thing, looking from the fact that we are going to have health care imposed upon us, government health care imposed upon us, one way or another. Whether it's Trump care or Obamacare or whatever it is, we're going to have it.
I don't understand why they had to do this, because we're not a socialist country. England is socialist. Canada is socialist. I mean,
Because people want it.
they don't know what they want.
Well,
let them go to these countries.
That's what democracy's all about.
Yeah, but let them go to these countries and see. If they have to wait a year just for an X-ray, they're not going to want it there.
Well,
America, they want it right now.
well-
Actually, they want it yesterday.
Well, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. And it's inevitable that we're going to get something. And whether we like it or not, we are going to have universal health care in the United States. It's in the books, it's going to be there, and it's facing it. Now, the big problem with it is it's developing a whole industry of corruption. And we have these people out there like Philippus Formus
Yeah.
who are stealing billions of dollars. And then we have Dr. Joe Schmo, who can't practice medicine because he can't deal with the problem of the coding on the billing. Billing is a major problem for most professionals. I don't know anybody who really knows how to bill. And I practiced law for 53 years, and I still don't know how to practice law. In fact, there's one kind of humorous story involving me. When I was a youngster, I wound up representing a major insurance broker. I don't know how I ever got him as a client, but I did. And they liked me and I liked them. And they were owned by this major company out of New York that sold a accident health insurance type of thing. It's one of those policies like combined insurance where you can never collect. They sold it at the airports. If the plane went down,
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
in a cloud burst where the rain was green, you got paid.
Oh, the rain was green, yeah.
This company, like some of the others who competed with, specialized in hiring youngsters. And they hired them out of school. They'd say all the members of the family, and they disappear from the books. And of course, the insurance company got this money.
Sure.
And they made billions on it.
I could imagine.
You know, and I think everybody tried. It was an easy way to start a career by selling accident insurance.
Insurance, yeah.
And you usually could sell your mother and father.
Well, they want to give the kid a boost up, so they buy, everybody in the family is going to buy insurance. Whether it works or it doesn't work, they give the kid the thing, and he gets a boost up.
So anyway, the IRS came into the company and said to them, all those kids you've been hiring, they're not independent contractors. They are employees, and you owe FICA. And you owe $70 million for at least the past 10 years
Wow.
in unpaid FICA. And the company went to their New York lawyers, very large law firm, and lawyers looked at it and said, Garbin's right. You owe the money. Pay us X number of dollars and we'll negotiate with the government a settlement. Well, the president of the company was a feisty guy, and he didn't like being told he was wrong. So he went to the Chicago lawyers, major firm, and they looked at the situation and they sent him a memo telling him he was wrong and he ought to pay the money and they would be happy to negotiate. And they charged him accordingly for it. Still wasn't happy. And it just so happened that the president of this brokerage house that I represented happened to be in New York when he got the letter and said, why don't you try Kenny? Now, you got to imagine.
He went to New York, he went to Chicago, and they sent him to you.
Yeah. I have a little office on Touhy Avenue. It's a storefront. It's essentially a storefront. It's really not a storefront, but it's as close to being a storefront as possible. And we're about as informal as you can get. And of course, nobody told me they were coming.
Oh.
So this Cadillac limousine pulls up, and hear no evil, see no evil, and do no evil come in, the New York attorneys, and they want to hire me to handle this case. And they tell me about the case, and I listen. And normally, lawyers are given an opportunity to reject a case. Well, they catch me. I'm not wearing shoes. My stocking feet. I'm not wearing a jacket. I do have a tie, but that tie happens to be at half-mast. And I don't think I've shaved in 2 days. Other than that, I'm very presentable. So they mention this case to me and tell me all about it. They don't tell me about, well, originally they don't tell me about the two New York lawyers, New York and Chicago lawyers.
Yeah.
And I look at it, and they offered me a deal, and I said, if you consulted anybody else, it seems to me that you have lawyers on retainer. They said,
Sure.
yes, we did talk to them, and they told us that it's a loser.
Oh, good.
And they bring out the memorandums, which are about 2 inches thick.
My goodness.
And the last word says, pay the goddamn money.
Pay the money.
Yeah. Hand it to me, and they said, we have to discuss fees. Okay. They made me an offer of fees. I could half of what I saved them.
Wow.
Or I could have $100 an hour. Now, in 1961, 62, 63,
$100 an
64,
hour is a lot of money.
it sure was.
Yeah.
A young lawyer was making about $5,200 to $6,000 tops. And that's what my classmates were making. They were offering me $100 an hour.
That's a lot of money.
Major lawyers were getting $25 an hour, and I was getting $100 an hour for every hour I spent. So, of course, I took the $100 an hour. Okay? They asked me what I wanted, and I said I need a check for $1 made out to Internal Revenue. Took the check for $1, made out a document called Offer and Compromise. It got an authorized signature, sent it in the IRS. The IRS was extremely impressed with it. They sent it back to me. I got the rejection notice almost as fast as I sent it in. I mean, it came back, I figured it came back on Monday. They had it back to me on Tuesday.
So that's pretty fast.
Yeah,
That's pretty
very fast. I filed a suit in the federal court for $1. They didn't give me back my $1.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I drew Abraham Lincoln Marovitz as the judge.
Oh.
We get up Abraham Lincoln Marovitz's courtroom on the status, and the judge looks at the complaint and says, "What do you got here today?" I said, "I'm suing the government for $1." He says, "$1?"
Everybody questions that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He takes $1 out of his pocket. He says to the clerk, give it to Mr. Dudkowski. He says, "Case dismissed. Go away."
Go away. Oh, go away.
So I put the $1 in my pocket. My opponent, who had flown in from Washington for the status, tried to explain to the judge that there was more involved, but $1. Judge wouldn't listen to him. A week later, he came back with a motion to vacate the order in my favor for granting me $1.
$1.
He was satisfied. And the judge still wouldn't listen to him. A couple weeks later, in shows the bigwigs, head of litigation at the IRS, a bigwig in the Attorney General's office. I mean, they really put on a show.
Okay.
They put on a show. And the judge vacated and gave him time to respond and to file a counterclaim. I asked for, can I get discovery? Judge said, sure. So I sent out some interrogatories. I asked, who were the employees they claim we didn't pay?
Oh.
If any of them filed tax returns, and if they paid the taxes that were due on it, and if they paid unemployment, they paid self-employment tax. And I sent it in. I got a call back from the attorney who said, a fellow named John Miles, and John called me and said, we don't keep those type of records.
What do you mean?
I said, well, your case is based upon that. I'm entitled to that information. I don't care how you get the information. I want to know how much we really owe. I'm not going to take an estimate, and the court not going to take an estimate. And when you file your complaint against my client, I'm going to take a jury. Well, about a week later, I get a call back. They decided to drop the whole matter.
Oh.
And everything would be dismissed. So I add up the hours.
Your time? Sure. Here we go.
I got 21 hours.
Wow.
That's almost a half a year's pay for a
sure.
young lawyer. I send my bill for $2,100.
Yeah.
I get a call back from the president with the chairman of the board of the company on the phone. Ditkowski, is this a joke? I'm thinking,
Why?
They're complaining about $2,100. Before I can get the thought finished, he says, we paid $50,000 to find out that we owed the money. You do the work for $2,100.
Wow. Wow.
Well,
So-
you know what the situation was. I had underbilled, and I underbilled so substantially, in spite of the fact I had an agreement, that they figured I didn't have confidence in myself.
Oh my. But that wasn't the case. You took the $100 an hour. You took them up on what they promised you, which was $100 an hour.
The large law firm took it and charged $25,000 to tell them they didn't have a prayer in hell.
Jeez.
And they expected a comparable bill for me.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I got a little more than $2,100, by the way.
I believe
But
you
that's
did.
not the issue. The issue is the fact that how many times do professionals run into that situation?
Sure. It's a billing situation. I mean, and that can be very, that can be very confusing because everybody charges differently. But you're saying that the government is making
Everything is
everyone
coded.
the same.
A surgery that removes my nail from my toe
Yeah.
gets paid like a more complicated surgery than my brother would be doing. And when you have this type of a situation, you have a level of fraud
Yeah.
that exists that doesn't come into this 700% fraud surcharge.
Oh, geez.
But it's a fraud nevertheless,
Wow.
and it undermines the system, And it makes it very, very difficult because the government looks at every professional as equal. And they're not equal. They're not even close.
Yeah, yeah.
And then when you get to a situation like the billing on doctor's care, the doctor who treats the nursing home, he slows down at 30 miles an hour and charges for 300 and some visits.
He's passing in a car 30 miles an hour, passing the nursing home, and to him, in his mind, he's visiting all his clients, his patients.
And that's a problem.
How can you visit 300 patients in a day? I mean,
Anybody who's been in a hospital sees names of doctors they never heard of.
Yeah.
Who are these people?
I don't know.
What are they doing?
Maybe they're not even real people. You don't know.
You get pills.
Pills.
You get costs. A fellow was telling me the other day, he developed a rash on his leg, one of those contact dermatitis things. So he went to the dermatologist. The dermatologist looked at it and prescribed some stuff. $800 a pill.
Holy cow.
By the time he got the pills, the rash had disappeared.
See. So how do we check this? I'm sure there are pockets of groups of people that check into fraud of medical fraud and pharmaceutical fraud. So how do we do this? How do we do this?
I don't know. I don't know how you do it. I know this is part of the situation.
Yeah.
How do you deal with competence?
Yeah.
We have, when you look at Joanne Dennison's disciplinary action, we have a person who claims to be a lawyer who wrote to the Supreme Court that this disclosing corruption is akin to, quote, yelling fire in a crowded theater.
True.
We got to take and do something about incompetence. You got to do something about incompetence in the courthouse.
Oh yeah.
In the administrative hearing.
Oh,
And you
yeah.
have these administrative hearings. People are talking now about the red light cameras.
Oh.
They now bring them before administrative judges. The judge is paid by the city.
Yeah.
If the judge would rule consistently against the city, he'd be thrown out.
Sure.
Is that fair?
No, but
we have an entire...
But the judge is counting on his job to be there, to be paid. Mm-hmm. So he's not telling the truth.
It's another built-in corruption.
Corruption,
and
yeah.
These are not judicial judges, these are administrative law judges. And then as we've pointed out previously, the cost of becoming a judicial judge.
Yeah.
$100,000 of the dominant political party.
In your face, give it to them, and they don't care. They're in like Flynn for a judgeship. That's it.
So you have all of these things, and we talk about our democracy. Well, this is a serious drain on our democracy, and it undermines it completely. If I become vulnerable and I wind up in a nursing home and my rights are taken away from me, that's a serious problem.
Well, that's why people feel that they need to go to someone to inquire as to what are their rights, the family's rights, the victim's rights. When the hospital steps in and goes to court and denies the family visitation or anything to do with their loved one, that is a serious fraud. That is a serious corruption.
And they do this stuff directly.
Sure.
They do it all the time.
Yeah.
And we are quickly becoming a nation that's going to not have have the basic rights that we expect to have. We're losing it in the administrative process. We're losing it in the courts. When a person has to pay, like Judge Cook is an example.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The Sun-Times ran that article, and it showed he paid over $100,000
To get the position.
to get slated.
Yeah.
And then put $660,000 in a campaign fund
Yeah.
to run unopposed.
Unopposed. Wow. And then he gave up the position. But 120 days, 4 months, that was it. And then he didn't want it anymore. Went back to private practice.
Yeah. Well, the whole situation is we have to start going at corruption. You can't get it all at one time. You got to start somewhere. And I think the place we have to start is start going after the people who are covering up.
And who would that be?
Well, you can start off with this guy Jerome Larkin, who
Well, we've tried.
that's one of the
We
things.
have tried and tried and tried and tried.
And we have the nursing home owners, we have nursing home operators.
Well, Philip, what's his face?
Philip is foremost.
He's in jail.
He's in jail, but he is small potatoes.
What do you take?
Look at the amount of money that's
50 billion, with a B, billion dollars.
yeah.
How does someone accrue that much money unless it's like from a concentration camp, having all these people have their teeth pulled and you're collecting all the gold from their mouth?
Well, the nursing home that did that should be closed. The guardian ad litem who orchestrated it
Should be jailed.
should be jailed and made an example out of it.
Yes, absolutely.
But she's still getting referrals from the court.
That's
And
very
how does this occur?
How?
Because you got judges who are paying to be on the bench and shouldn't be there. You've got to have a standard. The standard has to be fair. It has to be straightforward.
Well, what happened to the court watchers? I used to go downtown and be a
They're
court
there,
watcher.
but no one listens to them anymore.
Well, you have to take it to somebody. Look at all the corruption that's going on in Washington, the belly of the beast, so to speak, with the corruption with the former FBI director, James Comey.
Well, there are problems there.
Oh, tell me about
problems
it,
there. The
won't
problem
you?
we saw a fix,
Oh, yeah.
but that fix goes on every day in Cook County.
So
Look at your mother's case.
Yeah.
Analyze step by step how it was done.
Yeah.
Then, if you look at the Mary Sykes case, they didn't even bother to get jurisdiction. This judge couldn't have cared less.
No,
And then she admits.
Yeah.
Then she admits that she's fixed, and what happens? She gets sent to the appellate court.
And she gets elevated.
Yeah.
She gets elevated to the appellate court.
So
Yeah.
you gotta get at these situations. And why is she elevated to the appellate court? Because money passed. Now that money is taxable money. That's not exempt on any basis whatsoever. That is income, and it should be taxed as income.
Well,
And if you tax it as income, you wind up with the situation where these bad guys have a reason for doing the right thing, because they could. You want to pay 30% tax on the money, on the bribes. God love you. Go ahead, pay it. Certainly, the state of Illinois can use it. And then you got this guy like Jerome Larkin, who's covering up for all of these people. When you act in an conspiratorial manner, you have joint and several liability. Now, the Supreme Court a couple of days ago came up with a decision that limited the forfeitures to just the amounts received. However, they didn't do this with the taxes. So under these circumstances, when $3 million was stolen from the Sykes estate and $1.5 million stolen from your mother's estate, Jerome Larkin, who's covered this stuff up, owes the taxes on it. Why is the state of Illinois not collecting it? We're going to get a 10% raise in our real estate taxes in Chicago, 6% in the suburbs, and Larkin is getting a pass on $4.5 million plus.
Well, because he's covering for all these other attorneys and these judges, and no harm is coming to them because they're under his wing.
Well, we have a governor. We have a Republican governor.
And of course, he gets kickback. You know he gets kickback.
Well, instead of complaining about this, he ought to be talking to his administration, particularly the Department of Revenue, and sending out notices and collecting this money. We have now a Republican administration. Why is the IRS not going after this money?
Okay, so look who you've got as Speaker of the House in Illinois. You've got a gentleman in there who's been there for 42 years. 42 years. Who has a job for 42 years, the same job? I mean, he's got a law firm, and he's Speaker of the House. He's running 12 million people in the state of Illinois. It's one guy running 12 million people, and it's not the governor.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the Speaker of the House.
It's very true. We've got to do something about this corruption, and we've got to start someplace, and the best place is start right at the ground roof level.
You bring me somebody who wants to come on the air, who will do that. A politician. I don't know if he's going to be able to win the next election. People will say, hey, I want my money, or look what happened to my family with how they stole what they stole from a senior citizen, an invalid per se. So, that's our music. We'll have to pick this up again, but find somebody for me. I'll wait till you find somebody to come on the program.
I don't think I'll live that long.
Yes, you will. Absolutely. Listen, we'd like to thank you for allowing us in our home, in your home or your place of business, and enjoying our program. And believe me, this weekend's going to be a sweetheart because Sunday is Father's Day. So please wish all your male relatives who are dads, your uncles, your grandfathers, your dad, whatever, your brothers, a very happy Father's Day. Be careful with the weather, hydrate yourself, and if you'd like to be on my program, please contact me on for my YouTube, and please watch our YouTube. I invite you to do so. Watch us on YouTube, and see you next week on North Shore Live, Cooper's Corner, and happy Father's Day and happy Flag Day. Thank you for watching. Good evening.